What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. And I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by the Lion of Tipperary, Will Fleury, before he goes into the European series over in PFL. And Will, we were talking there briefly beforehand, but I never told you, I got your Sherdog page changed. It no longer says Dublin, Ireland, and now says Tipperary, Ireland. So I hope you're happy with that. Like I hope that's a good thing.
I had no idea, but fair folks.
No, very good.
I'm spending the vast majority of my time in Dublin these days, so it's probably more accurate, to be honest.
As a Munster man, though, I know myself. You know, you can take us out of Munster and you can put us in Dublin, but we're never actually. You know, we're always Munstermen. So, but it always annoys me when I hear people say it about you and Peter Queally as well, fighting out of, fair enough fighting out of, but from Dublin, Ireland, like. They're not from Dublin. They're not from. You can't take the tip out of Tipperary, man. Like, you know, so it's good.
Whenever you go out foreign, they'll only say Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, Clare and Tipperary, and they're like, Cahir. I'm just like, no, Clare and Tipperary. And then by the end of it, you're just like, fuck it, what's the point? Just go on, whatever.
Dublin, yeah, from Dublin. Career. So we've talked down through the years, and you've had a very good career up to date, and I was looking at the record today, and obviously having gone, you know, on a very good win streak now, winning 4 in a row, and even, you know, before that, putting on some very good fights and winning some very good fights. I thought myself you were on the precipice of the UFC, and you were just about to be signed by the UFC. You know, maybe to take one more fight or whatever like that. But you had that fight in the PFL, and now you're going into the PFL European tournament. For you yourself, and you talked about the UFC in the past for obviously having fought in Bellator. What was kind of like that decision, or what was the process for you to end up in PFL and end up now fighting in this European series?
So look, the goal was the UFC. And after I won the tournament or the title in Abu Dhabi, I kind of thought, look, I've a very good in here. And then I had my management team, like I'm with Yusuf from Ruby Sports, and I got him to contact, reach out and find out what the crack was. And they said, oh, look, really impressive record, good skill set. We're all like, but he needs a couple of finishes. And they were basically saying, it doesn't matter who it's against, just get a couple of finishes and you're pretty much in. But then trying to find anyone to like get matched and getting paid shit money. European scene, there's really very little on offer in general. And then the PFL came in with a pretty good contract in that period of time. Now, the original offer was at light heavyweight, and I was like, no, I'm not interested. And then it was the offer for the 1 million tournament at light heavyweight. And I was thinking, I'm very interested in that. So that kind of sweetened the deal. But now it's this European tournament, and there's kind of, to me, this feels a bit like you've given me another year of a roadblock to get to that $1 million. But grand, I'm going to smash down that roadblock and, make a bit of a name for myself, get to fight in Dublin once more, and then I'm going to head off to America and win the $1 million. So, look, it's a little bit, in my eyes, it's kind of pissed me off a little bit because I got sold on $1 million, and I got sold on $1 million tournament in 2023. That's now going to be 2024. But in the meantime, I get to have 3 fights in Europe, get to smash it, and get to get my name out there a little bit more. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like disappointed, but at the same time, like, let's see where the next year brings us.
That's interesting because when I looked at your game, looked at your fights over the last number of years, and the last 4 fights, there has been like, I think, a clear and succinct improvement to become like a top level fighter at the weight class. And like sometimes you see it, like I remember the Brian Moore fight 2 fights ago. Even though he ended up losing that fight, you could see like the improvements. He'd always been a great fighter, but to become a world level fighter, and you saw it with Conor back in then, you see it, with other fighters obviously outside of Ireland as well, and it felt like you had reached that point a couple of fights ago. So it's not as if like you need another year to improve to get to that level where we see, maybe some other fighters on the way up that might need that, like yourself and Franz and probably a few others are at that level now where you need like that push to the top to take on the top guys. Is that a frustrating part as well, that you're a guy, and I've heard you speak many times over the years about thinking about those improvements, thinking about needing to do A, B, C, and D to get to this point? Do you feel like you've gotten to that point now and you're ready for the point and you're kind of being held back a little bit?
A little bit, but at the same, look, I tried so hard for so long, and when I look back at some of the fights up till, say, 2019, 2020, God, I really didn't get it. You know, I was making so many basic errors, and like even watching back through my own fights, I'm cringing, and I'm like, you know, on my head, my hands half the time, being like, what the fuck were you thinking? Narius came on board. Like, you know, I started training a lot with Narius, who'd be the main jiu-jitsu coach inside an SPG Ireland, and even just kind of adopted a lot of his attitude towards everything. So since 2019, 2020, I've kind of changed. Like, I'll be honest, I try less hard, like as in I'm just a lot more tactically aware and a lot more kind of skilled. Like, I think I always had the intention and the willpower and the determination. Now I just fucking get it. I have the skill set to be able to deal with people and fuck people up very easily. And even like a lot of the time when I'm sparring these days, it kind of just feels too, it's like you need to present more problems to me because this is nearly boring in a way. But like, I see what you're doing. I'm going to be able to fuck you up with what you're doing. Come on, give me more than this. Like, and like, yeah, so there's a frustration in that, but then it's like, okay, I need to get out there and prove that on a world stage. I feel like I've had that ability for a long time, but it hasn't actually happened. I haven't gotten the platform to be able to do that. This feels like that platform. So it's exciting in a way, but it's also like, right, I'm fucking 33 now. I'm not young. Like, I have maybe 4 or 5 years at the top level left. I want to make hay while that time is there. I have the ability to do that. Let me get out there and do it.
Watching the Tarek Sullivan fight and seeing your hands in that fight, it was just like, as you said there, you always had the will and the power, like, no pun intended, like to kind of to catch someone, push him against the fence, be that raw bastard that you call yourself, pull him down and destroy him that way. But to be like that, the class, I suppose, or the classiness to that, you know, that was something I suppose we've seen in parts in your game before, and I'm sure you looking back have seen it in parts, but to see it in kind of a full fight like that, and we've seen it, you know, before and since, I suppose, in the fights around that, that's something, you know, when you hear people say, oh, you need to get a few finishes, to me, looking at a performance like that and looking at someone being able to perform like that is way more, you know, useful than seeing like a 1-round knockout. Is that a kind of a frustration as well, where you can see the actual improvements and there's like 25 minutes of those improvements and people kind of, others maybe can't see that?
Yeah, look, I suppose a finish is always going to be more palatable to everybody. Everybody wants a finish. Everybody wants a 10-second clip of you knocking a guy out. It's amazing. And like I've dropped, I think, you know, my last 4 fights, I've dropped people 5-6 times, maybe, you know, and there's been a lot of 10-8 rounds, a lot of extremely dominant rounds in there. But it's like on your record, somebody looks up, it's like, oh, decision win. That might have been a close decision. You know, they're only going to spend 2 seconds looking at that. So it looks like, oh, well, that could have been a pretty close fight. And it's like, no, it wasn't. None of my last 4 fights have been anyway close. It's been a lot of 10-8 rounds on my side. Like, I don't know if I've even been like properly, like, I think your man clipped me like here at one stage and it didn't even like wobble or rattle me. And that was the first time I've been hit in those 4 fights. That was the guy, Salamone, in the last fight. So it's great to be that dominant, but I would love to be finishing these guys. A lot of what I feel like is happening, and it happens a lot in my sparring recently as well, is like the guy doesn't feel like they have any like they just feel shut down. And then they're not trying to win anymore. They're trying to not get finished. So for most of that Tarek fight, it's him surviving. And it's like, you're not even coming out, like, you're not exposing yourself to the point where I can really fuck you up anymore. You're just looking to, okay, I'm going to make it through this. Or maybe his plan is I'm going to make it through this round and I'm going to have a go at the next round. And the next round starts and I start whooping his ass. And then he shuts back down again and he's just looking to not get finished. And like, even with your man Salamone, like, he said it to me, I was chatting to him afterwards. And he was like, oh, a round and a half in, he was like, I knew there was nothing I could do. And he fought like that. He fought to just not get finished. So it's frustrating in a way that way, but it's on me to go out there and be able to finish them guys too. You know, like, I would love to have those, you know, if it was 4 finishes on the record, there'd probably be a lot more hype about it at this stage. But like you said, you can see the skill set. You can see what's there behind that. So I feel like when people are like, if I'm fighting a guy who's determined enough to have a good go at me and go like, okay, fuck you, I'm the winner today. Good, bring it. Let's see what happens. You'll get finished. I've fought guys so far who've like accepted the defeat.
Yeah. Is that a thing as well, like that? You know, you said in training maybe that happens a little bit too. Have you travelled to other places or tried to get other training partners in maybe, or gone, you know, to America or wherever it might be to get different looks? Is that a thing you've thought about or a thing you've done?
A lot recently, yeah, because I've had a good bit of time. Like, I didn't realise I'd have quite this long in between fights. So it's August, and I'm now hopefully fighting in March. I probably should have went away at the end of last year and, you know, gone out to Florida and spent a month or two over there. I regret not doing that, to be honest, but I definitely plan to in future. And we do have a lot of guys who pass through. So like, say in November, we had a bunch of Slovakian guys who came over, and I got to spar them quite a lot. They were up for it. And obviously, if you don't know the guys, you go a little bit harder and you can kind of not care as much, you know. So it's nice to have that. But by and large, it's me, Carl, and Johnny. And we're three very high-level guys, and we're three guys who are really pushing each other. But it is like, I can't kick the shit out of them and not feel bad, like, you know, or I can't, you know, we can't go as hard as we would with each other and not have some degree of fucking regret about it. Like, so
how good does it have to have guys like that? Like, let's say someone like Chris Fields, who would have been a similar size to you on the way up, probably didn't have like near that amount of training partners, although, you know, he did well enough himself, and I'm sure the training he got was very good. But like, to have lads that high level, and for them to have you as well, it must be actually great to have that, because, you know, you even spoke a second ago about getting fights at your weight class in, you know, on the way up, maybe even if you're a pro starting out, it's very, very hard. You're like, it's lucky in a way that you even have two lads like that at that level, isn't it?
Oh, it's like, look, even I thought about it a couple of weeks ago. I was like, God, where else in Europe, like where else in the world? Well, probably in somewhere in Florida, you'd get this amount of high level, big lads. But like, we have a very good team, and we have a lot of decent sized lads. Like even Mohammed Abdurhanov now, he's lost a little bit of weight recently, but he was up around 100 kilos for a while as well. And he's a very, very, very good body grappling wise. Like, to be honest, he's technically superior to any of us. You know, me, Johnny, or Carl. He'd be tip top grappling technique. And even just getting the flow with him, getting the move with him, and getting to feel that, like, whoa, these reactions are mega quick, mega flexible, you know, and change things together unbelievably well. So having bodies like that you can kind of, you know, test yourself off of, improve off of, and even just like, yeah, get familiar with, like, because eventually everything just becomes, you know, you're used to dealing with that now. And then it's, okay, I have to introduce something new. So like you were saying there, do you want to go off and travel? Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to introduce more new things in. But thankfully, I have a hell of a good crew around me, and they do give me a lot of new stuff a lot of the time. But I want more, you know. I do. I'm kind of, there's times at the moment where I'm like, you know, there's probably, like, I feel like in the last 3 years I've improved so much, but there's potential there to improve a hell of a lot more. I don't, like you were saying, do you feel like you're there? No, you can always get better. And like, I'm hungry. That's the thing. I'm so fucking hungry to keep getting better and better and better. And like, I look at where I was, say, mid 2020, and I look at where I am now, and I'm like, Jesus, your skill set is so much bigger. So in the last, you know, I feel like for the first 10 years I was involved in MMA, I was trying so hard, but I just didn't get it. And now I feel like, okay, I kind of get it a lot better. And I try less hard. Like, you know, I don't train as intensely as I used to. I watch a lot more. I break things down a lot more. And I'm not like super even like, you know, I write notes and stuff, but my notes used to be crazy. Now my notes are kind of just like, yeah, do this in that position. Grand. I get it. And like, it kind of works a lot better. But I'm much more like, I think about things a lot more, and I kind of, I suppose it's a hard thing to kind of verbally sum up, but basically my bottom line is, in most positions now, I know where I need to be, and I know where I should be, and I kind of understand the path of how to get there. And yeah, we're lucky we have a lot of big guys.
It's an experience thing. It's an experience thing too. I assume, like, not only have you done all the training, attained the skills, but you also have used those skills in the big fight, so you can be a little bit more confident about it. That's one thing I find like so fascinating about a fighter coming up. Like, I saw you in your opening fights of your career, like, and to see the progression, but not only the progression, but to see how you choose to progress. Like I'm always so fascinated. Like, are you going to become a wrestler? Are you going to become, and like, say, you can fight everywhere, but not just you, but every fighter. Like, what's the plan A? What's the skill set? What's the game plan? Like, is that, like, when you say you think more now, is that something maybe you're thinking of? I can wrestle, I can grapple, I can do jiu-jitsu, I can strike, but it's what I'm going to do. And like, so here's the question, right? Are you finding, we hear like teams say it all the time, or, you know, you hear the Limerick Hurlers or the Man United or whoever, we're going to go out and we're going to play our game, let them do what they want. we're going to play that. Or sometimes, right, we'll play a second defensive midfield, or we'll drop someone back. We'll play because they're dangerous. For you, what way is it? Like, are you so confident in your own game now that you'll go out and fight the best way for you? Or do you go out, look at your opponent, really observe them, and try to fight around them?
So the way I look at it, and, this was a thing that kind of hit me years ago, but that I truly understand now. It's like everything anyone does gives you an opportunity to do something. So it doesn't really, like, if I go in with, I'm going to do this, well, what if he moves in a way that doesn't allow you to do that? Then, well, what are you going to do? So early enough on, I kind of got that. It's like, well, you can't have too strict of a plan on what you're going to move it. Like, you can have ideas, you can have set things that you think will work given the way that guy normally moves. But if you're too attached to any of that, you're going to find yourself struggling if none of that stuff happens. So, like, the way I look at it now is like, you're going to present tons of opportunities for me to do things. I just have to be open to taking them. And, like, if you have a good enough brain and you can read these situations, you can see what's coming, just take the opportunity that's about to come. And then, like, and that's what I mean. It feels easy. It feels just like, oh yeah, you get it. Okay, that's going to happen. Okay, cool. Boom. Oh, now we're there. Okay, he's badly hurt and you're like not even feeling tired. This is great. It's easy, So, like, I think having confidence in the way you break things down is important. So, like, beforehand, if you see a guy does this, okay, great. When that comes, you do this. You'll feel it coming if you've seen it enough times. And if you've drilled it enough times and you see that pattern about to happen, boom, you'll be there. But before, like, if that doesn't, okay, now I've got to take other opportunities. I've got to go and do other things. Do I have a skill set that can do that? That's the question. Do you? And have you worked enough shit to know that no matter where he's going and what way he's moving, you've got answers? And it's the thing. I don't feel like the answer to all of those questions yet is yes. I find some guys who are really rangy, tricky still. Like, you look at that Norman Nemeni fight and how badly that guy fucked me up. And I was like, man, I'm striking 10 years at that stage, and I look like a complete amateur. And I look like I'm blocking everything with my face and I haven't a clue what's coming next, And it's like, it's soul destroying. It's so horribly embarrassing, that shit. But, like, I really do feel like if I hadn't come through that, I probably wouldn't be anywhere near as determined to succeed now and to prove, here, fuck you, I'm a really, really high level fighter. And I'm going to go out there on a world stage and prove that. And, like, that's what this whole PFL thing is about, because to me, it felt like a bigger opportunity to do that in a shorter space of time. Where it's like, you're going to get a chance to win a shitload of money on a world stage, and then you'll have options. So, I can't wait to get this fucking thing started, man, and just actually get out there and do it rather than just talking about it and, theorizing it all the time. It's like, fuck it, just put me on that platform to be able to go out there and show what I am like.
One thing I'm very interested in, and I love talking about the technique and how you decide it and all, but deciding, I suppose, the outside of the cage part of it, like whether you're going to fight, to try nothing but to get to the UFC, whether it's go to Cage Warriors and go that route, or maybe look for a contender series, or obviously you've been in Bellator and now in PFL as well. Like, the 2 points of view of it, you make good money in Bellator, you make good money in PFL, but it kind of precludes you from going to the UFC for a while anyway, and for yourself probably at least 2 years now. Like, does there have to be an adjustment for you mentally to say, well, my dream from the second I started was more than likely to go to the UFC, as it is for most people. And that's, if it goes well, it'll never happen, because they'll want you in the PFL, as you said, 33 years of age. They'll want you there for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. We see their ex-champions are still there and still doing good things. Does that take kind of a mindset change as well, to say, all right, this is the route I'm going. It's not the route that I dreamt of, like, coming up, but it's the route I have now?
Yeah, like, it definitely does require a bit of a, okay, here's the goal now. And then once you get that goal, it's pretty easy. Like, I suppose, like, man, when I started fighting didn't seem like it was ever going to be a career. Like, I've been around since before Conor blew up and all it, So, like, me now being a full-time fighter and making my living from fighting seems mental to me 10 years ago. That never seemed like an option. I just loved MMA. I love competing. I love fighting. I love the buzz of it before it ever seemed like this could be an option. So the basic bottom line is, like, you put me in a cage and get me to fight somebody, I'm going to be delighted. Like, I'd be doing this shit for free, but thankfully it's a way you can also make a living. Like, yeah, the UFC would have been cool, But it's not like I only like MMA because UFC exists. Like, I love MMA because it's a sport that makes you fucking unbelievably, like, it shows what your character is, to me anyway. And like, you get to test yourself and you get to find out about yourself and you get to prove to yourself every day what you are. So like, without that, I'd feel a little bit hollow, I think. And I have that. And that's not a brand name. That's a sport. And the sport to me is everything. So like, ultimately, yeah, it's not under the brand banner that I grew up dreaming of, but it's the same thing. It's the same sport. And like, man, to me, it seems like the PFL have the potential to do a lot of very, very cool stuff if they get their shit together. Please God, they will. And we'll see that. And you'll see me at the fucking top of the poster come to Tree Arena time. It's going to be an amazing night. But like, regardless, I'm going to be in there competing, whooping ass, doing what I love doing, you know, whatever banner that's under.
How good as well, like, obviously you've been someone who's been maybe hurt by the politics of the sport in terms of the decision, but now, like, there's no politics. You know, you win your fights, you're going to have 3 fights, you're going to be probably headlining the Tree Arena, let's be honest, in the 8th of December. That must be great, because that's not a thing you often get in MMA. You don't get that meritocracy. Even like, look, say someone like a Tony Ferguson won 10 fights in a row and never ended up getting the title fight. How good is that to like have that in front of you? And like, you talk about gold, that's probably the clearest goal you can get in MMA.
Yeah, thanks, because I should have remembered that when I was talking about making the decision between the two. Because it is like, look, I'm not somebody who like gets out there and pretends to be some twat or whatever. I'm me. This is it. Like, this is what you're going to get, okay? And I'm not going to compromise that for anyone. So I feel like even if I go in there and I put on a few good performances, you could be like a Sarukian where you're an incredible guy, but like, you know, nobody's really getting behind it. There's not too much of a way behind. Whereas within this, it's like, look, if you're the guy who wins it, you're the guy who wins it. They can't stop that. Doesn't matter if you're fucking Mr. Sellable or Mr. Not. Go in there and smash guns from people who love you, you know, or like, you'll get the big fight, you know. And even like with this tournament next year as well, in the American one, it's like, yeah, look, you go in there and all of a sudden, like, hopefully there's a name in this European tournament or somebody I can smash that like people go, whoa, shit, he beat that guy. But next year there definitely will be. And that's huge. It's like, yeah, look, that's the level I'm at now. I smashed those guys and I smashed them, you know, emphatically. You'll get that chance because they can't, you know, as long as that guy gets there and you get there, great. Now I get to smash that guy. So that's very satisfying. And it's like, even like, I suppose the big thing is kind of just focus on winning and focus on loving the sport. But there is massive frustrations in the fact that what I got into was a sport. What this thing is now, it's a fucking circus. Like, you know, like, you know, like, thankfully we're talking about fights today, but like, look at the amount of shit that's after happening in MMA in the last 3-4 weeks. That's just so disheartening and shit. And like, you know, the vast majority of like, you know, MMA related news now, I just can't fucking stomach at all, because it's like, here, this has nothing to do with what I love. You know, this has everything to do with like fucking WWE shite of like, and even worse crap than that. Like, look, I don't hate the WWE. They're just a different thing to what I like about sport. But like, yeah, I don't know. I feel very, it's just like, right, I get to focus on fighting and hopefully there's fights soon. You know, but and then like, my job is just, I see what what my job is as being the best fighter I can be, you know.
Okay, we'll finish on the fights. Last question here. Jake Paul, you know, you kind of called him out. He's signed with the PFL now, so he's fair game. He's around your weight class and all of that. He's not going to fight someone as good as you. He get absolutely destroyed. But what's your thoughts? Any words for Jake Paul here?
And he's just going to fuck me as well, because I was like, I did just call out Jake Paul, didn't I? But look, like, it's been a crack. I definitely don't think he's ever going to fight anyone like me. You know, somebody without a profile who's legit as fuck. But at the same time, it'd be amazing if he did. It'd be amazing to get that opportunity. I'd love to show what a high-level fighter is in comparison to what some fucking twat who's coming in thinking they can do MMA is. But, yeah, I understand why they won't do that and how financially that probably isn't the best idea for them. But at the same time, like, give a raw bastard a chance, let him sell himself, get me out there, see what happens. I don't know. I feel like make this thing a fucking sport again and you'll have a lot more fans long-term. With the way it's going now, I feel like a lot of people are getting very fucking, like, most of my group of friends outside of MMA were huge MMA fans 5 years ago. They kind of don't give anywhere near as much of a fuck now. And look at the generation who are like 25 now. Where will they be in 10 years' time? Like, are they going to be as into this if it keeps going the way it's fucking going? It's like, no, you kind of have to have some bit of faith. I know circus and freak show shit will work for a while. Is it that fucking sustainable? Or do you want actually, who's the best guy in the world? Oh, who's he fighting? Okay, cool, class. You know?
I couldn't agree more. Hashtag make MMA a sport again. I think that's what we need to get going. And I 100% couldn't agree more. Will, I really appreciate your time. I always give great insights. I'm looking forward to seeing you fight, and we'll talk again when the tournament comes around. Thank you very much, Will. Thank you to everyone for listening.
Cheers.